Welcome to this Epic Life podcast, where we explore the connection between building a conscious life and building a conscious team or a conscious business. We also break down 3 powerful permissions with our guests. The first is permission to chill, to find stillness and find that inner wisdom inside you. Next is permission to feel all the feels, or to embrace our full humanity. And finally, permission to glow in the dark. Interpret that however you wish. I will be your host. My name is Christopher Carter. You may call me KC. I'm a coach for founders and executives and meditation teacher for organizations. And so it begins. I usually try to spare my guests sitting through their own introduction, but not with you, Susan Piver. So if you're open, if you're open to it, I'm just going to roll this introduction with you, having to endure it. Are you ready?
I'm dreading it, and I can't wait.
That pretty much sums up our relationship. Here we go. Susan Piver is one of those people I'm blessed to cross paths with periodically. Her work has had a big influence and impact on my life, whether it was helping me determine my Enneagram number, helping me rethink sobriety as a virtue, or teaching meditation by being an eternal student. Susan is that elusive, genuine article, like your only female friend who likes the band Rush, except she probably wouldn't dig Rush because she once bartended in a legendary blues bar in Austin and later worked as a hip-hop executive. Susan would definitely understand your own obsession with Rush, though, and never judge you for it. My favorite part about Susan is her genuine fascination with most, if not all, things. Her presence exudes a calm sense of wonder, wisdom, and perhaps above all, openness. She once let me read her a children's picture book on meditation. She's also a renowned meditation teacher and New York Times bestselling author of 9 books, including The Hard Questions, the award-winning How Not to Be Afraid of Your Own Life, The Wisdom of a Broken Heart, and Start Here Now, an open-hearted guide to the path and practice of meditation. Her latest book is The 4 Noble Truths of Love, Buddhist Wisdom for Modern Relationships. Susan is also the creator of the Open Heart Project, the largest virtual mindfulness community in the world. Her and her partner, Jenna Holenstein, train meditation teachers through their 9-week online program offered throughout the year. You can find her online at susanpiver.com. So Susan, welcome. Did we leave anything out?
Oh my God. That was the most awesome and terrifying introduction. And as you were saying it, I was like, well, first of all, I would judge you about Rush. So sorry.
Oh, no. We'll have to go on. That'll be part 2 of our conversation.
Okay, fair enough. And second of all, I was listening, thinking, I'd like to meet that person.
Yeah, right.
She sounds awesome.
Well, hopefully you know by now that I have 2 speeds, off and completely epic. So that's the way we went with your introduction, and which is exactly why I don't drink anymore.
Christopher, it's beautiful. I so appreciate you seeing me that way. Thank you.
Well, you're a wonderful mirror for everybody you meet. I wanted to start kind of with our core question around the podcast. So on our podcast, we explore this idea of 3 permissions as access to our highest expression. These are permission to chill, which is to find stillness. Second, the permission to feel all the feels, which is access to our full humanity. And permission to glow in the dark, and you can interpret that however you wish. Do any of these resonate with you today, and what do the permissions to chill, feel all the feels, or glow in the dark mean to you?
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. It's interesting. The first thing that they all relate to me. I know that's a bogus answer. I mean, they all resonate with me. But what I was thinking as you were saying them was, well, that really mirrors the entire Buddhist path. The first cycle of teachings is about stabilizing something, relaxing onto your natural path. So chill. And then the second stage, which happens organically because that's how human beings are wired, is your heart opens to others. It just softens. So, feel all the feels. And then when you have a sense of relaxation and you're brave enough to feel all the feels, or at least try, the world becomes kind of magical. it becomes sacred, not in a religious way, but in just a super awake, alive way. It glows in the dark. So I think that's the whole path right there, described in 3 steps. I think it's beautiful.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's funny. It kind of mirrors also in yogic tradition, the Om Tat Sat. There's a lot of, I don't know exactly where it came from, but the permissions seem to balance each other out, and I figured you would be all about them, because I'm sure in some indirect and very direct ways you've helped influence these.
Well, that's very kind. And what I found about those 3 permissions is that they're inseparable. And they're not sequential even.
Yeah.
They're just inseparable, and they form a mandala. Let's all do those 3 things.
Awesome. I knew you'd be on board. This is exciting. What does trying to impress Susan Piver mean to you?
It means it's like the funniest thing that anyone ever tried to do for me, or to me, with me in my whole entire life. It means the time I got out of my car and saw Christopher Carter walking toward me with a T-shirt that said, "Trying to impress Susan Piver." And it was one of the most mind-stopping moments of my life. What is that? Why? What does he mean?
It's funny.
He just did.
Where it came from was I was the MC for Jonathan Field's Camp Good Life project, and I decided to make this series of shirts that were status updates. So one said best year ever, one said I say we do it, you guys, one said introvert friendly, one said extrovert friendly with like 7 exclamation points. And to round it out, to make it more serious, quote unquote, I thought trying to impress Susan Piver would just go over well, at least with you, maybe, or it would just totally alienate you. I didn't know how it was going to go.
It went over with me so big.
Well, every time I snap a selfie in it, if I have it on, I can't help but snap a selfie and text it to you, just because you need that in your life. I feel like everybody deserves that in their life.
Everyone should have the experience of showing up somewhere and then finding someone wearing a T-shirt saying, "Trying to impress," your name.
Yes. I thought,
it's the best.
Like I've told you, I thought about giving it to your husband, but I think I'm just going to pass it along to other male teachers that I know and just see where it pops up in your life. I think that sounds more fun.
I am in.
All right. So getting into your work, if there's, what I'm really struck by in your books is that your body of work, it keeps building upon itself, but it also seems to be deepening its understanding of itself, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And if you had to identify an essential thread that runs through all of your books, what do you think it would be?
Well, I love that question. I think, the first book that I ever wrote a long time ago, The Hard Questions, is just a book of questions to ask before you get married. It doesn't have anything to do with Buddhism particularly, although to me it did, but doesn't say anything about Buddhism. And then the last book is really about applying these deep Buddhist teachings to your relationship. It's much more from a teacher perspective. But I would say the through line for all of these books is now you do it. Don't take what I have to say as, anything. Check it out. Now you do it. Bring this into your experience. It doesn't matter what my theories or anybody's theories are. What matters on the spiritual path is, can you do it? How do you do it? So even the book of questions, there were no answers in there. These are questions you ask and you find the answers. And then, all the subsequent projects, and my work as a meditation teacher too, is really about now you do it. It doesn't matter what I do or it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to get you to be on my path.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you find your own.
And it kind of brings up for me you have the heart of a teacher, but also the heart of an eternal student and a true practitioner. So I think the thread sounds something like, here, practice.
You're right. And I appreciate you seeing me that way. And you're a teacher too, and a perpetual student. And I'm sure that the most profound experience you will ever have as a student is when you become a teacher.
Yeah.
Because you have to see into the heart of what you are offering, and you have to be it. It's the most extraordinary way to be a student is to be a teacher.
This brings me to my next question. So, like, describe either your passion or the need you identified behind training this next generation of meditation teachers, because that's been a pretty big focus for you over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I love teaching people how to teach meditation. And I guess what has driven me was, well, it's two things. One is mindfulness, quote unquote, is just in our world now. It's part of our conversation about work and love and sports and everything else. And it's really easy to get confused about the power of the practice and think that it's a self-help technique. And it's also really easy to think, well, I'll go to a few talks on mindfulness and then I'll start teaching it.
Yeah.
I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a therapist, or I'm a teacher, and it seems like a very simple practice. I'm going to start teaching it to others. But it's actually much more complicated to teach than it may appear on the surface if you want to preserve the richness and integrity and power of the practice. So I want to teach it as a spiritual path, not as a life hack.
Yes.
I think that's the answer. It's to help people see what it takes to actually teach it, but also to teach it as a spiritual practice.
I really appreciate that, because so much of it now is kind of the McMindfulness movement of divorcing it from any type of spiritual power. And that's really the juice behind all of it. Like if
absolutely.
My next question was kind of tongue in cheek, but I said, I saw a Facebook ad for a webinar titled "Learn the Meditation Practice That Created My 7-Figure Business." That wasn't you, Susan, was it?
Busted.
Stuff like that makes me want to wage jihad on all of Facebook and just kind of forget teaching meditation. It's just so maddening that somebody would seriously post that or create that. It's just like, can you bastardize this sacred practice anymore?
Holy cow. If only Buddhists had fatwas, I would issue one.
Right. That's an overstep, sir. It's an egregious overstep. Well, if I didn't say it outright, I'm just really grateful to you and Jenna for doing that work. I know people that have gone through the program and gotten so much out of it and are kind of going forth as really focused, serious teachers that are really reverent to the practice itself and have maintained a deeper level of practice themselves prior to teaching. So I want to really thank you for being out there doing that work. I feel like it's so crucial right now.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's meditation in the West, just like everything, has sort of entered into a male-dominated world, and this has nothing to do with men or women. It's a male-dominated world.
Yeah.
And that view is, well, we need to accomplish something. It's a vast overgeneralization, so apologies in advance. But we'll set a goal, we'll define the steps to get there, and then we'll take those steps. That's a great way of doing things. That works. But there's another way of looking at this practice, as well as other things, that is not quite that linear. And it seems that the practice is often presented as a way to become more powerful in a certain way. Mm-hmm. Sure, it's like stress reduction and make your amygdala more fluffy or whatever it does, which is good. Yes, all of that. But it will also help you achieve excellence, I read. It will help you be a better leader, a better athlete. It will help you accomplish more. Okay. But that's not really what the practice is about. And that's not really what makes it powerful. And that's not really how you become powerful. What it really does is makes you more vulnerable. And I don't know how to say that in a way that doesn't sound sappy or girly, But to become more open, more receptive, more curious, and less certain those are synonyms for being more vulnerable. And those are also the preconditions for love and insight and creativity and innovation. And they also happen to be the fruits of great courage. So it takes way more courage to walk into a situation, aka your life, not knowing, than it does to walk in armed with a set of beliefs. In Buddhism, beliefs are considered obstacles. They're not considered helpful.
Wow, yeah.
And so I think that's partially why.
So much is coming up for me. I'm thinking how grateful I am that the spiritual path has curves in it, and curves may be traditionally a little bit more feminine than the straight line, because the straight line feels like a razor's edge. And it makes me think that we'll look back on this period of meditation marketing very soon, hopefully in the future, where it'll look like one of those old like Time or Life magazines from the 50s where the bullet points are so archaic, you know, like eat more meat, smoke cigarettes while you do it, you know.
That's hilarious.
It's just the marketing. I feel like you're right. It all takes on that masculine, like do more, be more, meditate and fast forward. Like one of the things the oxymoron that drives me nuts too is meditation boot camp. Like I picture people pounding Red Bull and meditating, and it just doesn't seem like the right vibe to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I read this interview with Jack Dorsey, one of the founders of Twitter, who had come back from a 10-day silent retreat. First of all, congratulations to anyone that does a 10-day silent retreat. That's so hard. But he said the reason he wanted to do it, and I'm paraphrasing, this is not exactly what he said, but it was something to the effect of, I want to do this because it will help me hack the deepest levels of consciousness. And when I read that, I just thought, oh no, I don't want to hack anything. And P.S., who's doing this hacking?
Yeah.
And who are you hacking?
Right.
That is a way of saying I am putting my conventional mind in charge of my wisdom journey.
Yes.
And that's just backwards.
It's so, and I don't know if it's a product of like the tech, get it now, fast, you know, millennial type of thinking of immediate gratification, but I was never interested in being a hack ever at anything. I was like, you know, mastery, whether you're playing music or you're learning how to raise a family, figuring out how to be married, it's kind of about the long-term commitment and devotion to the craft, right? So why the hell would you want to hack that? I don't know. Like, I think hack itself is a marketing term, isn't it? Like, do it quickly?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Shortcuts. And you know, you're a spiritual teacher. You're building a business. You have a family. There are no shortcuts.
Sadly, no. Right. Well, one of the monks told me, and you know, my spiritual counselors in the self-realization path, he said there's no results department on the spiritual path. There's only the effort department. And it's like kind of the last thing you want to hear as like a new devotee. Like, when do I get to the thing? When do I get to achieve samadhi or whatever? You're like, no, there's only the effort department. And it could take lifetimes. That was what he added up. I'm like, okay, lifetimes with a plural. Interesting.
Right. I totally agree. And P.S., which lifetime is this? I don't know.
Right.
I'm never gonna know.
Yeah. Like where are we in process here?
Yeah.
So speaking of retreat, one of my favorite retreat stories of all time came out over dinner at Jonathan Field's house one night. What does the film Step Brothers mean to you? Does the film represent any scriptural allegory or parable for you?
No, but the film, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, does.
Oh, it's the 40-year-old virgin. I confused it with another seminal classic from the same period. It was The 40-Year-Old Virgin, right?
It's totally understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the transmission of The 40-Year-Old Virgin, so to speak. I was once on a long retreat, very long, like a month, and I was sitting on the floor for a month, and you know what, Christopher? I was getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
It was boring. And day after day, hour after hour, and I'm thinking, I can't take this anymore. I can't. I've run out of ways to entertain myself. we have like an hour to go on the meditation. I know. I'll watch the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin in my mind.
Wow.
Because I've seen it so many times and I love it so much that I can just watch it right now.
Wow.
So that was my meditation.
Did it begin with a visualization of you taking the DVD out of the case and putting it into your mental DVD player? Or did it just start on the opening credits? How did you do the visualization?
I just started with Steve Carroll waking up in bed.
Oh, okay. I love that a renowned meditation teacher like yourself that's teaching so many other teachers how to teach meditation, which is totally meta in itself, and you knew that, was that would mentally play the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And I'm sorry I confused it with Step Brothers. Are you familiar with the film Step Brothers?
I am, and I forgive you, and it could easily have been Step Brothers, except I have seen 40-Year-Old Virgin like 10 times more than Step Brothers.
Can we set the intention at some point to watch Step Brothers together and just discuss?
Oh my God. Dream date.
Dream date. It kind of is. Okay. Well, we'll parking lot that for now.
Okay.
What are you... So back to your kind of body of work on your writing and the things that you think about and that are showing up in your writing. Your current book is The Four Noble Truths of Love. Kind of being almost a year into that journey of, being out talking about the book and exploring it further with audiences. What would you say the Four Noble Truths of Love are teaching you about your marriage or about your work this time?
The Four Noble Truths of Buddhism taught me a lot about love and a lot about my marriage. And that's the whole book came out of that meeting of the Buddhist Four Noble Truths, which are the core of the entire path, as I'm sure you know. The meeting of those truths with my everyday life and my relationship, which sometimes was great and sometimes was really upsetting and, normal relationship.
Like a real human relationship.
Between two humans.
Who would have thought? One is plenty dysfunctional enough. You add two, and it's like exponential.
Exactly, seriously exponential. One of the things that I have enjoyed the most sort of discovering is that the Four Noble Truths, they have a logic. The Four Noble Truths of Buddhism or the Four Noble Truths of Love, the latter made up by Susan Piver, I just want to add. Not the Buddha. The Buddha gave the four Noble Truths, but Susan Piver made up the Four Noble Truths of Love. There's a logic to them that I find really interesting and useful. And the logic is, the first truth is the truth. You just say something that's true. In the case of the Buddha, he said, life is suffering. Thanks a lot, Buddha. I don't think he meant life sucks, by the way. I just think he meant life is unsatisfying. In relationships, the truth is the sucker's never going to stabilize. It's always going to be going up and down. That to me was the truth that I discovered. Wow. And then the second truth is the cause. Well, what is causing this truth or this suffering? And the third noble truth is the cessation, just wrapping your mind around the idea that you could stop suffering in that way. And then the fourth noble truth is, how do you do it? And so that truth, cause, cessation path, that has been a really eye-opening sequence to me. It may sound obvious, but I have found that when I try to apply it to various things, it works. So I've really enjoyed contemplating that. And I've also enjoyed/disenjoyed seeing my constant inability to actually grasp the truth. I don't know how you do this in your path and your practice, which is connected to the Vedic tradition. Is that true?
Yeah,
okay.
It is.
So I'm sure there are essential notions, and you hear them and you practice them, and you think, yeah, that's true. I trust that. But then you go into your life and you're like, why am I acting like that true thing isn't true?
Well, it's Well, I really appreciate that you wrote the first three truths and didn't skip to the fourth one and just write the how to fix your crappy marriage book that a lot of people write. Because the humbling and maddening part of meditating a lot, I mean, I don't know if you'd agree, is being woke for your own crappy behavior sometimes. Like the awareness when you're doing the very thing that you wrote is best not to do, or disregarding all best practices and just being an angry turd on a given day. I think that there's wisdom just in that of the noticing, and maybe it'll take a lifetime of noticing and will be, a baby step closer to truth. But I just really appreciate that you can give voice to that and be honest about it, that work is, kind of eternal in your marriage.
Yeah, it is. I don't know about you, but I'm not any different than anybody else. I've just been doing this for longer. That's the only thing that enables me to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And also, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we are both in relationships with people who do not practice what we practice.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because you're taught not to teach your own or try to preach against your own or, spouse or partner. Yeah.
Yeah. My partner's not interested in he doesn't meditate. He's not a Buddhist. Okay. So your partner, I think, also doesn't.
Yeah, she doesn't practice. No.
I find that to be really powerful stage, because we can't just talk the talk.
Yeah, right.
We can't talk about what it means to be compassionate or awake or whatever, non-attached, whatever that means. You have to actually just be those things, because you can't talk about it. Especially
when you have a very unforgiving, and I mean that in the most loving sense of the word, but my wife is a pristine mirror for my shenanigans, we'll call them.
Right.
And she will hold me to them, from like leaving the house for dinner saying, "Oh, you're wearing those pants. Huh?" the subtle rebuke into the, Wayne Dyer has this very famous story of he's stomping around the house yelling at everybody about his car keys. And his teenage daughter said, "Wayne Dyer, Mr. Spiritual Teacher to millions, have you checked your pocket? Because I hear them jingling," And he's like, he pulls him out and just sets him down and just like hangs his head in shame and walks out to the car. But it is kind of like double duty, trying to walk your own talk, but then doing it in the presence of somebody that won't let you squirm out of it. That's noble work, I would say.
It's a serious path and an amazing practice. And I know that there are people who think, well, I can't go out with this person or be in a relationship with this person because we don't share a path. And okay, it'd be nice, I guess. But there's also real benefit to being in a relationship with someone who does not share your path.
Yeah. Well, it's just everything is the dissonance, the contrast, the beautiful balance of, everything from, I couldn't remember his makeup, but how do your Enneagram numbers match up or work off each other?
Well, how much time do you have?
Oh yeah, you're right. That's like a whole separate conversation. You're a 4. You're a 4, correct?
I am a 4, and I'm obsessed with the Enneagram.
A little bit.
You're a 7.
How did you guess? Nailed it. Yes, I'm a 7. Yes, you helped me. You helped me distinguish that. Yes.
Yes, I did. Very proud of that.
You basically held a mirror up to Peter Pan and say, "Here, see yourself. See the magic in your foibles and your shortcomings and your opportunities. Your virtue of a lifetime is sobriety." It's like, holy crap, that sounds so boring. But
that was the wake up moment for you and I think, in that conversation about the Enneagram.
Yes.
The sort of the power and blessing of sobriety, and that it's not just this boring, now I'm a dull person thing, but it's like this profound way of being, and very brave.
I think it goes back to what you said in the very beginning about glowing in the dark, like falling so deeply in love with your current circumstances that everything does glow and vibrate and just be, sometimes it's gratitude. Sometimes it's just the genuine awe of like, this is my job. This is what I get to do. I'm talking to Susan Piver on the internet. Oh, it's real.
we're lucky. We're very lucky.
We're lucky.
We really are. Mm-hmm.
So we'll do a part 2 through 10 volume series on your Enneagram matchup with your husband. But let's play this quick little game called Piverisms. Are you down to play this game?
Oh my. Yeah, I'm ready. I don't know what it is, but
it sounds fun. If you're not willing to play it, then who is, Susan?
It's true. Good question.
All right. So what's one reflection or piece of insight that you would offer an aspiring, okay, so that's the question. What is one reflection or insight that you would offer an aspiring, and the first one is meditation student?
Relax.
Love it. What's one reflection or insight you would offer an aspiring author?
Well, I'd say relax too, but the writing arises in the act of writing and not before.
So it's just the perpetual art of showing up and is hard and as simple as it is.
It doesn't exist before you start trying to make it. So if you think, I don't know what to say, well, good. That's appropriate. It will be said once you start.
Are you a Paul Simon fan or not so much?
I'm not a Paul Simon detractor, but I would not say I'm a fan either. How about you?
Like you're an active, subversive Rush detractor, would you say?
I'm not the president of the hate. I hate Paul Simon.
No, I was going to ask. It reminded me of a great Paul Simon line. Paul Simon, regardless of his music or his contribution to pop culture, his lyrics are definitely poetic. I mean, the guy is a craftsman. Mm-hmm. And one of his quotes that I love about writing is he just said, "You want to be a writer, you don't know how or when. Find a quiet place, use a humble pen." It's just a very,
that's good.
So after like a year, a lifetime of writing his canon of music, that's what he offered up to the people that aspire to write. I just thought it was so, it ties into what you said, just showing up and generating it, which is helpful. I'm working on a book and it's amazing. It only seems to show up when I show up to create it. It's not like spinning around in my head is productive.
I know. Isn't that weird? And what Paul Simon said is extremely pithy. But the second you start doing it, you enter some kind of stream. Sometimes it feels good and sometimes you just bump into rocks, but nonetheless, it doesn't start until you actually start doing it. It's not a mental exercise. It's something else.
Okay, because we got to jump into in a second here. We got to jump into the conundrum of being a writer versus doing the writing, because you are the master of doing nothing, or you are at least one of its spokeswomen. Very articulate spokeswoman of the do nothing movement. I just recently rewatched your TEDx talk from Aruba. So we got to jump into that. But the last couple Piverisms, what one reflection or insight would you offer an aspiring meditation teacher?
Deepen your own practice. No question.
Thank you. What one reflection would you offer an aspiring, this is the final one, so don't mess this up. This is the last Piverism. What one reflection or insight would you offer an aspiring spouse or partner?
The first thing that comes to mind is, not that may sound prosaic, but it's actually really difficult, and it is acknowledge and act as if the person you're in a relationship with has at least equal importance to yourself in the relationship.
Wow. That feels like for me, level 2 to level 3 listening versus level 1 listening. Like level 1 listening is how we listen to a server in a restaurant reading off the specials. We're thinking, wow, what's my stomach feel like? How much is this going to cost, But level 2 is in service of the other, and level 3 is like a master comedian or teacher, like measuring all the space in the room between all the people.
It's a beautiful way of saying it, much more beautiful than the way I said it. And there's some point, I don't know how it is for you, I won't make this long, but there's some point you go from being two people living side by side to being us. And that's a different ballgame. I'm
going to stop asking you about my favorite artists, but where do you stand on Peter Gabriel?
Like him, respect him.
You should revisit, I would highly recommend revisiting his album, Us, because it's this very deep exploration around relationships, self and other. And there's a concert film called Secret World, which is one of the most phenomenal concert performances and productions I've ever witnessed. I can't stop watching it right now, honestly. It's probably from like 1993 or 94, but his exploration of love in every one of its forms is all in that album, Us, and he sums it up with a 2-letter word. Is vast and as simple as that 2-letter freaking word. So thank you for bringing up the us of relationship. That's awesome.
I totally wrote down Secret World and Us. I want to check them out.
I might have to send you the Blu-ray as a thank you for being my friend today, Susan.
Aww,
For
you're so nice.
For crushing the Piverisms, I might just have to send you a copy. Killed it. What's your all right, so kind of shifting gears a little bit more here. What's your process for navigating our increasingly disturbing or chaotic times? You know, it's no mystery we're in some pretty weird times. How do you make sense of all the darkness that's bubbling up to the surface in our modern world?
Yeah, I don't try to make sense of it. I mean, I'm not ignoring it, but I cannot make sense of it. It is not sensible. There is no way to make sense. So sometimes I do whatever I can to help in my world, in my way, through my actions, my money, my votes, my talks. And some days I can't do any of those things because it makes me, I'm too sad. So what always revives my spirit is to just do what I can to be kind to the people I actually do encounter and to focus on my work, which gives me great joy and is with the intention of helping others. And then I think about something that Tara Brach said to me once. She's a really great Vipassana meditation teacher and author of many beautiful books about meditation. I asked her once, what do you do to tell your students, Tara Brach, who come to you with compassion fatigue? Like, they're just tired of trying to be nice and care and do good.
People suck. What do I do?
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm working every day and I'm tired. And she, without hesitation, she said, Sangha. I tell them Sangha, community.
Yeah.
So that is interesting to me and surprising. It's to reconnect or connect with people who you feel tribal with or familial or that you love. That's where your tank is refilled in your community.
So last year, you wrote a letter to your Open Heart Project community. And it's something I've wanted to ask you about personally. And I don't want to get into too much of the details about it because it's complex. But I want to talk about what it took for you to write this letter. It was in response to abuse allegations in the Shambala organization. And what I was really present to when I read it was your confusion and your hurt, but also this beautiful act of leadership and giving voice to something. And I was just curious what went into addressing something so confusing and painful, publicly, no less.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you asking. And yes, it has been painful and confusing and not surprising. Let's just add that. Mm-hmm. That a spiritual teacher would suddenly be outed as having clergy sexual abuse or power tripping in ways that really, really hurt others. So, yeah, it's obviously extremely all kinds of upsetting and enraging on behalf of victims and so on. But I have a community, and I couldn't imagine just saying, oh, maybe they won't notice.
Yeah.
Maybe. And also people were like, understandably freaking out with this most essential question. Who do I trust? What can I trust?
Yeah.
So I wanted to say something helpful, and all I could do was say what I myself was doing that was helpful based on my experience as a student and a teacher for now close to 25 years of a student and about 10 as a teacher. I wanted to acknowledge this is what's happening. I wanted to say this, if you look at me as a teacher, not your teacher, because I'm not going to be the capital T teacher ever, but if you look at me as someone who you go to for guidance or meditation instruction or whatever, you deserve to know how I feel about this,
yes,
if it's of interest to you. So I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to separate myself from this community because I cannot abide remaining connected to it for the following reasons, and I listed those reasons in the letter. And if you are feeling upside down and lost, where it is very dangerous, Christopher Carter, I do not have to tell you.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous because you're going to fall into depression and non-action or rage and aggression. Neither of those are helpful. Both of them will exacerbate the situation. What the central question in life right now in our world is, how can I fight aggression without aggression? That is my koan. Because when you try to fight aggression with aggression, you amplify aggression. But you can't do nothing. You have to fight. How does one fight without aggression? So that was the inspiration. That question was what inspired me to write that letter, which got a very interesting response.
You know, I went a little bit down the rabbit hole of responses. There's that gentleman who has the book coming out who's just a very cerebral yogi, I would call him, you know, very into dissecting the intellectual language around letters and apology and all sorts of stuff. But your participation with him and his process, I thought was also really admirable, because your response essentially to him was, if you think it's helpful, you're all about, like, let's put anything out there that needs to be out there just in the spirit of being helpful, you know, because there may be people that want to approach, you know, dissecting what happened from the intellectual perspective or the spiritual perspective, but I was just curious about what it took to sit down and write a letter like that, because you know, my heart broke for you and that community, but also like you in this day and age, nothing's shocking anymore. And also spiritual teachers, last time I checked, are all, even if they're, you know, total divine avatars of God, you know, what I was really present to is you stepping up as, you know, even a stronger leader in your community, a stronger teacher, and helping process that publicly. I just feel like that couldn't have been easy.
Oh, I appreciate that. It has not been easy. And at the same time, it's been frighteningly empowering. Because you have a set of teachings, I have a set of teachings. I thought, oh, there's someone behind, you know, there's someone back there, a teacher.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
Right.
So the only thing that you have is, what do I know? What do I actually know? Okay, that's all I can really teach, which is always appropriate. It should always be that way anyway. But when that greater power, quote unquote, dissolves, then you have to sit and look at your own power, not your domination power, but your wisdom power.
It's almost like when that moment when you're a teenager and you realize you could very well be smarter than your parents, and you're like, what do I do from here? And my
I know, this is a real good news.
And my kids are experiencing this at the age of like 7 and 10. You know what I mean? But that moment where I think the line you gave it in your letter, which I totally love, is, we are truly on our own and it's okay. Just like the duality of how vulnerable and frightening that is, but also, to use your words, the empowerment of that, of this is what we've been prepared for in some way, is just a really poignant moment in the path.
It absolutely is, and has been, and continues to be. It's a really interesting time, really interesting and painful and galvanizing.
So let's wrap this on a little bit lighter note, if you're up for that, Susan Piver, which I think you are.
I am.
Thanks for riding all the waves with me, by the way. You're so fun. What would you say goes into doing nothing? Like, how did you discover this art, or is it a science? So distinguish for me between, you know, I want to name this episode Teacher of Being, Doer of Nothing. What do you think I mean by that? And how did you discover this art that you have?
I love that so much. I love it. Well, it's something I've really been thinking about a lot lately. Not how did I become that, but what does this mean to do nothing? because you can't do nothing. I mean, even if you're sleeping, you're doing something. I think what I have come to, or the theory that I'm entertaining, is the theory of ordinariness and simplicity and not adding anything would be how I describe doing nothing. Doing nothing means don't add anything. Doesn't mean freeze in a zombie-like pose. It means don't add. So meditation practice is a great example of that in the case of mindfulness practice. And I'd be curious to hear what you say about your practice in this regard. I mean, the practice is you take a certain posture, you work with the breath, and you let your thoughts be as they are. And if you get distracted, you do this. That's it. But that is not the practice. That's the technique. What are you practicing? What is this technique enabling you to do? The technique is not the same as the practice. And the more I have asked myself this question, the more I've seen that the actual practice is simply being yourself. And that may sound trivial, but when you look at the practice instruction, it is the most pared down situation you can ever be in. The components of the practice are your body, your breath, and yourself, your presence. You cannot remove any of those. You can't take away any of those pieces of the puzzle. You can't remove any of those things. They're essential. And that's all you're doing. And it's the most ordinary thing in the world. Everyone has a body, everyone breathes, and everyone has a presence. It literally is completely ordinary. It is the most ordinary thing imaginable. And so you're sitting there being ordinary, meaning you're not adding anything. You're not adding strategies or techniques or questions or
posturing
Exactly, posturing. And from this, something profound starts to happen. But only if you don't try.
Right.
The minute you start trying, it disappears. It's like mercury. It just disappears. But the more you let go and just, I remember maybe a year ago or something, I was going to do my practice and I was very grumpy. I was like, I don't want to practice. I'm not good at it. I just, I just sit there and I think of what I need to get at the grocery store and, what someone said to me 6 months ago. I wish I'd said that, back or whatever it is. This can't be it. So when I sat down this particular day, my instruction to myself was just don't do any of that meditation stuff. Just sit here being Susan. That turned out to be an incredible instruction. Just sit here being myself. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to be myself. It was very rich. And in that moment, in that way, I realized, there's a technique, but it's not the practice. The practice is sitting here being yourself. And from that, something extremely magical and magnetizing happens.
It's legit all three permissions. The being yourself technique. It's legit. So it's finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, the gift of the ordinary, without all the fluffing up and stuff that goes with that. But yeah, no wonder it was a profound practice to be Susan. I don't know if I would have a similar. Do you have that meditation on Insight Timer or somewhere I could grab it to be Susan?
No.
Oh.
I just sat and did it. I didn't.
Oh, okay. Because I have this shirt that I'm trying to impress you. I figured, what if I just become her? Would that get me over the hump?
No, I have to get a shirt.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Christopher Carter.
Yeah, right. No, it's. Thank you for being such a warrior for being human. Truly, like when I was first introduced to you in an interview that Jonathan did with you when it was a video interview on Good Life Project, and what I was so enamored by was your you were telling the story of your life of just doing and finding yourself in all these like Forrest Gump-like amazing situations. And you were just as in awe of all of it unfolding as he was or anybody watching would be. You were just like, yeah, and then I did this, and then Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then, yeah, just Oprah's couch. It just happens, you know? I wasn't even doing it. There was no strategy, certainly. And it's ironic because it reminded me of the same energy that did you ever see like a hair metal guitar shredder when they're shredding so hard on their guitar that they look up at the audience like they're shocked that they're shredding so hard? They're looking down at their hands and they're like, this is awesome. Is it me playing? It's like, and it's clearly probably like a contrived thing, but you buy into it. You know what I mean? Yours was that without the practicing it. You just have a permission to be human about you. And I just want to say I really appreciate that about you.
Oh, you always make me happy, and you make me feel good that I am myself. And I feel very happy to know you, and that we're trying to do each in our own way the same exact work in the world. You're my brother, and I'm happy about that.
Well, thanks for speaking with me today, Susan. It's been a real honor and just a great time. It's been a blast.
It has. I enjoyed it so much.
And thanks to all of you for spending time with us. To learn more about anything we discussed today, please head on over to thisepiclife.com for all show notes. We'd really appreciate a review on iTunes, and your feedback is always helpful, so please pop on over to iTunes and leave a review. And also, please get in touch. My email is kc@thisepiclife.com. You could also find us on Facebook and Twitter at This Epic Life.